Hi everybody, good to see you all again. It's been a while since I've done a video lesson. I think it's a bit overdue. In this lesson we're going to talk about bending, we're going to talk about the mechanics of bending and how you can get the most out of your bending technique. So we're just going to crack on with it and yeah, let's do it. So the most important things to consider when it comes to bending is bending notes in tune and bend them with good vibrato. So we're going to start off with the most kind of obvious bends that are usually available to us. We'll just use this D minor pentatonic scale as our framework and we'll just go from there. So within any given scale we have a number of bends available to us, and minor pentatonic scale has plenty. So for this one, that's our first one, one of that classic bend from 12 to 14. And we've got this one as well. And then, and so on. So the principle behind this is you have a intended note or target pitch, if you like. So in this case, we've got this note on the 14th fret of the 3rd string. And when we bend up, we've got to make that bend pitch exactly the same as the intended pitch. So it'll look like this if you're practicing it. So like that. So that note that you bend up to has got to be exactly the same as if you were fretting it. Same thing on the other strings as well. Like that, or this one if you want to be a bit more ambitious. So, and that's the whole exercise really, is to kind of like play the true pitch, if you like, and then bend up to it and make it sound exactly the same. And the goal is just to get these as in tune as possible. So when you're in tune, you kind of know if you, especially if you use your ears with it. And if it doesn't sound in tune, it tends to sound like that. And you can blatantly hear the difference. So not only do you have to obviously use your ears for this, but it's also a question of how it feels in your hands as well. It's going to feel a certain way when you get a note in tune versus not so in tune. It feels different on different strings and on different parts of the fretboard as well. So there's that to take into consideration. So once you start getting to like the lower part of the fretboard, you have to use a different kind of pressure as opposed to playing here. But the same principle still applies. So once you've practiced this for a bit and got the hang of that, so hopefully, you've done that a few times, or more than a few times, and you've gotten the hang of it. There might be a bit of trial and error, but that's what practice is about. So, then you can start expanding onto the lower strings, which is kind of a little more difficult, but it's still the same principle, of course. So, for example, if this here is your target note, you want to bend from 10 to 12, and it should hopefully sound like that. And do the same with the other notes as well. Like that. And you just go through the scale like that until you can get each one of those bends to be as in tune as possible. So minor pentatonic scale is really good for that. You can expand this as well. So for example, we can use a minor scale, which will look like this, which as you can see has a lot of more different kind of bends available to us, but semitone bends particularly. So for example, if we, same thing again, if we want to use that as our intended pitch, we bend up a semitone from 12 to 13 and it'll look like this. They're a little bit easier to do, a little bit sort of easier to control, but the same thing applies. Do that better. That's better. And you just go through them like that. And you just go through them all like that, And so on. So the minor scale allows you to kind of explore different types of bends, whole tone and semitone bends as well. Same thing if you do it on the lower strings, like that. And yeah, that's the whole exercise, is just to kind of, is to know what the target pitch sounds like. So get a good idea of what that target pitch sounds like, and then when you bend up, you know that you have that point of reference. So you know the pitch that you bend up to should be as in tune with the real thing as possible. So that's the basics of bending, and that's like kind of like the basic mechanics behind it. So in the next section, I'll talk about applying vibrato to that as well. So once you've gotten the hang of that, you want to work on your vibrato and try to apply your own sort of expression and inflections to it. So if we just use this note as an example, so we're still within the D minor pentatonic scale, we'll use that obviously as our target pitch. And so when we bend up to it, it will look like this with a vibrato. So I'll do that again. So once you're able to get the hang of getting up to the pitch, getting up to the pitch like correctly, then you can start applying the vibrato and start doing your own thing with it to your taste. However, if you don't reach the intended pitch and you try to apply the vibrato, it will sound pretty disgusting to say the least. So, if for example, if we miss this pitch like that, or if we miss it like, and we apply the vibrato, prematurely, it will sound pretty disgusting. So always make sure that you're on point with the pitch, with the bend, before you apply the vibrato. So the same thing applies with the other strings. Same thing with the semitone bends as well. You can experiment a few with kind of bends like that. And then you can just kind of go from there. In terms of the vibrato, of how you would apply the vibrato, it tends to come from like kind of the wrist more than anything. So like that. So it tends to come from more here than anything, rather than trying to apply the vibrato with the fingers. This takes a bit of practice, a bit of getting used to. But like I said, always make sure that you have bent up to the pitch correctly before you do this. You won't be popular if you do. And then so start off really lightly, and then obviously once you get more confident, more advancing, you'll start kind of expanding it and doing towards more your taste. So maybe this, like that. So something kind of nice and light. Like that, maybe. So once you get more confident, you can do it a bit more aggressively. Like that. So that's kind of the basic principles behind it. That's sort of the way that you can sort of get your bends to be a bit more expressive. So that's it. That's the basics of string bending and vibrato and everything. So hopefully that wraps it up. If you enjoyed that video, give it a thumbs up and do consider subscribing to the channel. Hopefully see you in the next video. Cheers.